Welcome to EdLeader with your host, Dr. Rob Jackson. Join Dr. Jackson for conversations and reflections on improving educational leadership from the classroom to the boardroom and beyond. Educational leadership is an ever-evolving opportunity to make a real and lasting difference in the lives of students, parents, and the community. And now, here's your host, Dr. Rob Jackson.
Hi friends, welcome to the 6th episode of EdLeader. I'm your host, Rob Jackson, and I want to thank you for spending time with me today. Please let me start our time together by sharing how excited I have been to watch the EdLeader community grow from coast to coast, with listeners now from Mountain View, California, to Madison, Wisconsin, to Manhattan, New York. It's clear to me that EdLeaders across the country are excited about the opportunity to hear from others and reflect on how what they hear can benefit their own leadership journey. I would love to hear from you, your thoughts on the podcast or episode, or perhaps questions for our inbox scenario. Please consider leaving a comment on Twitter or Instagram at EdLeaderPod or on Facebook at EdLeader Podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at drrobjackson.com. Today I have the incredible opportunity to sit down with an amazing ed leader who has been teaching middle school and high school English and language arts for 26 years. This year, she has been selected as the School System Teacher of the Year. We're going to talk about finding the awesome in the awful, the power of reflection, not being the sand in the vaseline, and what teachers wish that every principal and every superintendent knew about teaching in 2020. She may be our very first classroom ed leader on this podcast, but she's still going to be put to the test with a visit to the EdLeader Inbox Scenario. Let's get to it. I'm sitting here with an English teacher and Teacher of the Year at John A. Holmes High School, who has also been awarded the honor of being named the 2019-2020 Edenton-Chowan Schools Teacher of the Year. She's been teaching for 26 years. She began her teaching career in 1992 as a language arts teacher at Chowan Middle School. She served as a teacher mentor, English language arts department chair, and was a district English language arts trainer for middle and high school curriculum. She later transferred to John A. Holmes High School, where she now teaches 9th grade English 1 and English 1 honors. She's also a teacher mentor, the English department chair, teacher advisory council representative, and the Small Gestures Club advisor. She holds a Master of Science Education in Curriculum and Instruction degree from Arkansas State University at Jonesboro and is licensed as a Curriculum and Instructional Specialist. She earned a Bachelor of Science in Middle Grades Language Arts and Social Studies Education from North Carolina State University and graduated magna cum laude. She received National Board Certification for Professional Teaching Standards in 2009 in Early Adolescence English Language Arts and recently renewed that National Board certification. Please allow me to welcome the Edenton-Chowan Public Schools Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Molli Rose. Welcome, Molli.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I am so thrilled to be sitting with you. You are one of my heroes for many, many reasons, and a lot of those because I've had the opportunity to be in your classroom. One of the things that strikes me about you and struck me immediately when I walked in your classroom the very first time years ago was the seeming joy that you have in teaching. Talk to me about teaching. Where does that joy come from?
I love kids. I love my subject area, but before that, I love children. I love being with them. I love interacting with them. I love watching them learn. I love getting to know them. I love forming relationships. It's all about them. And once I realized, because I didn't always have it, I'll be honest with you. When I first started, it was about me. And I realized very quickly that it wasn't about me. It was about them. And that's what brings me joy.
That joy absolutely shows. But let's talk about, you just mentioned there was a change at some point when you had this realization from it's not about me, it's about them. What was it that brought about that change?
Honestly, it's probably a combination of having my own child and realizing that all of these children that I'm teaching are someone's baby just like mine. And it began to change that my mindset in terms of they were no longer numbers in front of me. They were someone's child. Honestly, the second piece of it was Brenda Winborn. Brenda was my principal. She was just an incredible mentor and taught me so much about looking past myself and looking to kids and what were their strengths. And she loved children, and that's why she was there. And she taught us to love them the same.
I appreciate you mentioning Miss Winborn. For our listeners across the country, Miss Winborn is somebody whose name is well known throughout our community. She's, in fact, a legend. She,
Yes.
unfortunately, is no longer with us, but she left a legacy of care. And if an ed leader, an educational leader, has a tree of leaders, there are many, many people who are proud to be a part of the tree that she really helped grow, and certainly you're one of those. And so as you speak to the impact of an educational leader, I just really appreciate you mentioning that. Thinking about what you shared in terms of reflecting on your own children and each child in front of us, our students really, their parents are giving us a sacred trust.
Yes, they are.
They're trusting us with their children that we're going to do good things for their kids. What is that trust? When a parent says to you, I trust you, Miss Rose, what does that say to you? What does that mean to you?
It's a huge responsibility, but I look at it as a partnership. And it's a partnership first between the child and myself. And then we extend that out to the parent to help us if needed. Hopefully we don't need it. And a lot of times we don't. It's a sacred trust, like you said, and I consider it a huge responsibility. It's my job not only to educate that child in terms of the content, but I also feel like it's my job to help them be a successful citizen, be a successful human being. In fact, almost every day when the kids leave, I just remind them to be kind, remind them to be sweet, and
Absolutely.
They laugh. But I mean, it's something they look to hear. If I don't say it, they say it.
That's right. That's
Even
right.
after a week. This is the first week of the second semester, and I was busy getting ready for the next period. And I was, I said, y'all have a good rest of the day. And one of my boys turned around and said, don't forget to be sweet.
And with some of our students, if they don't hear it from us, they may not hear it at all.
Exactly. And I do tease them that I give them, life tips and dating
Right.
tips, but everything's a teachable moment. I like talking to this generation about being grateful because it's something that they don't all get taught. And so I teach them, like if they're going to call their mom to bring something that they've forgotten, I remind them, be sweet when you call her. She has to come and do this. And I just think that's part of the charm of teaching too, is having a real relationship with a kid and being able to say something like that and then thinking about it and actually doing it.
You used a key word, a word that we've mentioned a couple of times on probably every episode because it's so powerful, and that's the relationship piece.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships, I'm just absolutely convinced, are at the core of what we do, and absent a relationship, nothing happens.
Great.
How do you establish relationships with all of your students? You mentioned it's the start of a new semester. How do you do that?
Actually, this is something I've never told you before.
Okay.
But one of the things that came to me a few years ago started with one of your hashtags, and that was about believing in kids. And I do believe in kids,
Yes.
but I didn't always tell them I believed in them. And so unless we had gotten to a point in the year where I would write them a handwritten note or something, but I don't know, it really hit me when you were talking at Convocation that very first time about belief. And so I've started in the last few years on the first day of school, explaining to them that I'm capable of teaching them and helping them grow, and together we can accomplish great things, and that I believe in them. But the funny piece that I add is that I tell them I don't love them. And they look at me shocked. They're like, can she say that? And I say to them, if I stood up here and told you I just love everything about you, you're the sweetest, I don't know you, I can't love you yet.
Right.
And that's the key, is yet. And I tell them, I said, it's my job to find that love in you and that piece of you that, we can connect with. And so it starts from day one. It starts with belief, and then it turns into caring.
And I tell you, I've just got to imagine that if you started as my teacher and said, I don't love you yet.
Yes.
That knowing myself, I'm going to be motivated to earn that love, by the way. And I'm sure most of our children are.
They are.
But when they very quickly, I'm sure, come to realize that you love me now, it really means something because you just haven't given it away willy-nilly.
Exactly.
They've earned it from you, and it has this incredible value. And I just have to imagine when they know that you love them, and I know that you love them before you ever say it, by the way.
Sure.
I know you. But when they know you love them, I just have to imagine that they're working harder for you and they're more successful for you because they know you believe in them and they know you love them.
And they'll take risks. You know, you can push them to do more than they think they can do.
Right.
There's no other feeling in the world than a child struggling and then the light bulb turning on and them
Right.
thanking you for that, you know, and they don't always thank you for that, but they can thank you for that in their smile or their, you know, hug, or can you call my mom and tell her I just did that, you know, kind of conversation. But like last semester, I had, you know, said what I normally say and said the thing about, you know, not loving them that first day yet. And it was about 2 weeks into the semester, and one of my boys, I said something. He's like, "See, she's already starting to love us." I was like, "How funny!"
It meant something, though. It
Yes.
meant something, and so clearly you've spent time thinking about your practice, refining your practice, continuing to grow. Now, I've had the opportunity, really the pleasure and honor, to hear you speak on multiple occasions to teachers. As our keynote speaker, as the School System Teacher of the Year, by the way, congratulations
Thank
again. So well deserved. And to our beginning teachers, and a consistency in your message is around the joy of teaching and
Yes.
really encouraging our teachers. Almost when I hear you speak, it almost seems like it's a mission with you to encourage others who are also doing this really, really hard work. Talk to me about how you help teachers who are new to the profession or new to teaching, or maybe who may seem like they're going through a rough time.
You find your joy. You know, joy's not just going to land in your lap, and life is not always joyful.
That's right.
The workplace and the schoolhouse and the school classroom and the hallways, they have to be a place of joy for children and for adults. And finding that joy is, I'm a person of faith, so I do find joy in my Savior. So I do have to say that. But at the same time, I think it's a renewing of your mind daily, making sure that you're around people that are lifting you up and that want to see you succeed, and people that you can encourage. So I think your atmosphere and how you interact with people helps bring joy. But I think the main thing is that you seek it. Right. Seek it out in kids. School is hard. Teaching is hard. And every day is not joyful.
That's
you know,
right.
my famous catchphrase in my classroom is to find the awesome in the awful. Not everything we read you're going to love. Not everything's going to be easy. But you got to find joy along the way. And another way that you find joy is humor.
Right.
Not sarcasm. I don't think the classroom has a place for sarcasm, because sarcasm means to cut. So I think you have to be careful with that. But I think you use humor. I think you use genuine interaction and being real.
Absolutely.
Being real, not too real, you know. You can't give them everything because that's not appropriate either.
Right.
But they need to know that you are who you say you are and that you want to be there. I think that's another piece of it.
Right.
So many times people carry on their face that they don't even want to be at work.
Right.
Why would you want to be in that classroom?
That's right.
Learning from someone who doesn't really want to be there. And also the quality of your lessons. One of the things that I say to new teachers is, you know, you want learning to occur. Well, those kids have to be engaged. If you're not enjoying your lesson,
Absolutely.
I promise you they're not enjoying your lesson.
Absolutely.
You know?
We could only just play back over and over and over what you just said there. There's so much to unpack. It's so powerful, starting with this thought about finding the awesome in the awful. You know, if we think about what we're reading about in terms of the state of public education and teaching in public education, there's a whole lot of awful being
Yes.
talked about. There's a whole lot of awesome we don't talk about, like the awesome responsibility of the generations to come through the work we do every single day,
Absolutely.
and the awesome trust that parents place in us when they bring their children to us, and really this awesome opportunity to be around great kids.
Yes.
I just tell you, Molly, it's just, I feel cold chills going over my arms as I think about what you're talking about in terms of we have to want to be there and give the appearance of wanting to be there.
Absolutely.
So powerful. Now, tough days, what do you do on that morning where things just aren't going well, but you've got to teach, you know there's a classroom full of kids. How do you get yourself in that right mindset so they feel like you're finding the awesome and the awful?
I have something in my classroom that I introduced the first couple of days, and it's called a fidget. And it's a round circular It's more just like you put your hands in it. I can't describe it, but it makes a little bit of a noise. I tell the children it's like bones cracking. But but I put it in my hands, and it's two things. The first thing it is it's a warning sign to them. Give her a minute. She might need just a minute to get herself together. I don't know what's happened, but she might need a minute. But the other thing that it does is reminds me these children are not responsible for what you're upset about.
Right.
Get yourself straight.
Right.
So it gives me, I have like 2 minutes that I allow myself to have it in my hands, but it just gets me straight and it refocuses me. It's not about the kids in front of you did not upset you. Get straight and get going, and it works.
I love that. We've been talking about, as you know, social emotional learning and
Yes.
about building resilience in children, particularly those who have high ACE scores because they've had so many adverse childhood experiences. And you mentioned early on in our conversation the opportunity to help prepare children for life.
Yes.
There are times life is awful. There are
Yes.
times we have to take a deep breath and recenter ourselves. And so I love that you're being vulnerable with your kids, even though you may not be saying anything out loud. They know, give Miss Rose a couple minutes and she's going to be here with us.
Right.
But you're giving them something for their toolkit. Find a way to recenter yourself and be able to go forward. That's powerful.
They're funny because when you first introduce it, they're almost like, oh, well, that gives her the right to be mean. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's really more for me than it is you. And then I ask them, have you ever walked in a classroom and asked a teacher a question and got your head bit off? And they're like, yeah. And I said, well, this is going to keep that from happening.
So you're being real. And in that moment of realness there, I kind of grimaced when you said, have you ever gotten your head bitten off? Because I just hate that happens.
I do too. I do too.
Teachers are people. I taught, I'm sure there were those days that I wasn't in the best frame of mind. But as a student, I certainly experienced that as well when I walked into the classroom.
And my own children have. Not much, but it happens. And
it does.
And so I just tell them, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I've probably had it in my hands twice in the last 3 years. Because I just know. And I think to myself, you know what? I don't need that. I'm going to be straight. So it's almost like just a memory device for myself to get it straight, get it together.
Right. I just love that authenticity and being real in front of the kids. That's so important. One of the things I've talked about and I absolutely believe in is teacher leadership. I believe teachers are leaders. I believe that everyone in our school system who doesn't get to stand in front of students every day, who doesn't have the title teacher, exists to serve teachers as they serve our students. You are clearly a leader in our school system and recognized as that. You were selected by your colleagues as our Teacher of the Year. Talk to me about teacher leadership. How do teachers show leadership in the building, in the school system? What does that mean to you when I talk about teacher leader and share with you that you are a teacher leader?
I don't feel like a teacher leader. I appreciate you saying that, but I feel like I learn so much every single day. And I think that to me, that's the key. You might be a leader, but you've never arrived. Right. You're always trying to improve your craft. And someone who leads is looking for real ways to improve, reflecting on their practice and real ways to improve. And then when they see someone they can help, they reach out and they help, not in a loud, boisterous way, but you step inside and say, is there anything I can do to help? Or I noticed this, can I help you with it? Leaders in our system, we have a strong mentor program in our system. And I think that's one of the ways that I've been able to feel like I've been a leader, is to help beginning teachers with their practice in their classrooms and reflect. Because reflection is the most powerful tool we have as an educator.
Absolutely.
It is the most powerful. And if you don't reflect daily, minute by minute, classroom by classroom, then you're not teaching to your potential.
That's exactly right. And our students can't reach their potential if we're not also striving for our potential.
But I also think leadership is about accepting your leaders and not being sand in the vaseline, but helping to take initiatives and visions and make them into reality instead of always finding a reason why not. Let's do it. Let's get behind it. Another catchphrase I use in my room is be like Nike, just do it.
Just do it.
I mean, and so you try to find a way to make it work. And then not only just make it work, but also selling it to kids.
Right.
That's being a leader as well, as even an initiative you might not necessarily agree with.
And see, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate how hard you work to model not being the sand and the Vaseline. By the way, I love that. But there are also times when sometimes we need some sand in the Vaseline.
Yes.
And you've had the opportunity, and it was really a blessing to me. You were elected by your peers to serve on the Teachers Advisory Council in our school system. For our listeners, what that means is each school elects a teacher, 2 teachers per school, to meet with the superintendent once a month to share concerns, questions, and compliments. And some months, particularly if we've had bad weather that month, we have more concerns than compliments.
Right.
But the whole process hinges on the need for absolute anonymity. So I can never know who asked the question or who had the concern. And each teacher on the Teacher Advisory Council advocates for their school. So I'd like you to share with me your approach to advocacy for the school, for the other teachers, for the students, because you seem to have a very positive way to advocate when we need sand in the Vaseline, but in such a way that it doesn't tear down the system, but builds us all up.
Well, I appreciate that. I think what's important about a TAC or a school improvement team is that each functions in its lane. And I think one way that you can help teachers is to help them see whether or not their concern is global. And you helped me with that too, whether or not it has to do just with their school, just with their classroom, or it's a systemic thing that we can bring to TAC. And so I think that's important too, is to, when teachers are talking to you about things, sometimes the issue is their own room. Sometimes an issue is their own practice. And you've got to be able to say that in a nice way and get them to kind of see that, oh, well, if I do this one thing, it will make a difference. And I don't need to take it up further because I can handle it myself. And I think that's being real with your colleagues and being able to say, I really think that's your issue, and you may need to seek someone out to help you or whatever. And you have to be tactful about doing that. But I do think we've got to be at a point where we don't take everything personally. When someone comes in and does an observation or someone tells me something I can improve, it's not personal. It's how can we make our school run better?
That's right.
And I think sometimes we have to get out of our feelings and look at, does this affect everyone? If it does, then maybe I need to make some changes.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. So I want to give you maybe a rare opportunity, but it's an opportunity every teacher ought to have on a regular basis. All the principals listening are listening to a teacher that they probably aren't working with, except for one. If you could universally share some kernel of truth or kernel of wisdom about working with teachers that you wished every principal knew, what would that be?
Visibility and knowing your teachers and their instruction is the single most important thing in a school. I mean, walkthroughs are important, being visible in the hallway, but being able to speak personally if a parent calls and being able to say, I've been in that room. I was there this week. I know exactly what's going on. Speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
And for that principal to know how you structure your classroom, they know. I just think it's crucial. You have to know what's going on in your building. We're fortunate in our system that our principals are visible, but they're not just visible, they're knowledgeable. And I think that is huge. You can't run a school from your office.
That's right. That's right. And and that transfers right back to the classroom. Great principals are really great teachers,
Yes.
right? And so a great teacher, as I've observed, doesn't stay at their desk or doesn't stay at the front of the room or doesn't stay in any one place,
That's
but
right.
is monitoring by proximity, moving around the room, and by transferring that to the principalship, moving around the building and actually knowing and being able to share with a parent or anyone else who has a question. As you said, I've been in that classroom. Let me tell you what I see from Miss Rose or any teacher.
That's right.
Well, same question, and pretend I'm not in the room, so you
Okay.
just say it. If you could share that same wisdom or kernel of truth, what would you like to share with every superintendent? What should every superintendent know about teachers teaching in 2020?
It's a harder one for me because we are so small and we are so personal. And I mean, it's really not unusual for me to look up and you be in the back of my room, which is different than a system like Charlotte or,
Right.
A bigger system. But I think that is also what makes superintendent effective. You literally have been over every square inch of our system to know your schools, know exactly what's there, where the deficits are. And a good superintendent, let me back up. A good superintendent's focus is how can I support not only my teachers, but every child in this school, and for them to know that.
Absolutely.
I just think they've got to be able to convey it, which means they have to see people and speak to them regularly.
That's right.
And in a larger system, I know that's difficult. But for us, in our system of 4 schools, you're very visible and very transparent in how you run things. I think that's important too. We get a kind of a State of the Union address.
Whether you want it or not.
Whether we want it or not, which we actually look forward to it. I mean, we talk about it. It's something that teachers talk about. So I think that's important too. And when we sat in the legislator's office a couple of years ago in March, and a legislator made a comment about our budget or whatever, every teacher in that room said, well, that's not happening in our system because we see the budget. We know exactly where the money goes. And I think that's powerful.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I do think it's important for any educational leader or anyone who purports to support education to be in classrooms, to be in schools. And, it comes back to one of the places we started with, which is relationships.
Yes.
It's hard for me to have a relationship with teachers if I'm not in the classroom or if not in the school building. And so I do think that's important, and I appreciate you reflecting that back to me because, as you know, as years go by, sometimes we have slippage and we may forget those things or get busy with things. And so to have the important highlighted so that it doesn't trump the urgent is very important to me. And so I appreciate that feedback. And I can tell you, one of my favorite places in the world is in the back of Miss Molli Rose's classroom because I promise you it is filled with joy. She's having fun, kids are having fun, and we're blessed to have you in the school system. Thank you, Miss Rose.
Thank you.
You've got mail.
Just when everything is going perfectly, someone makes a choice that lands squarely on your desk. What will you do and how will you handle it? It's time to check the inbox.
Oh my goodness, Miss Rose, the bell has rung. We have an inbox scenario for you.
Okay.
So, going along with today, it is towards the end of the first week of the second semester. There's a child in your class that you've noticed just hasn't seemed to open up at all, isn't raising their hand, keeping their head down perhaps, just doesn't seem to be connecting with anybody. What do you do?
One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to find something positive that I can say or ask about an assignment, because I do a lot of walking around, and I also have a little tiny chair that I got from our elementary school when they were downsizing and changing their furniture. And it's a conference chair, and it puts me right at the same level as a child's desk. And so I might put that chair down and ask them something about their paper, but find something positive to say, some way to start a conversation. Find something they're interested in. At some point that week, I will have had them fill out some kind of questionnaire on their interests. And so that's a way that I start getting to know them better and getting to know their interests. And, I just think that's real important. Like I have a student last semester that I was struggling finding a connection with and realized he was a band kid. And I have a band son. So that it was just a natural. So now we talk instruments now. And that child came and saw me this morning before school started. I think finding a commonality, finding something you can,
Absolutely.
To crack that exterior.
And taking the time, putting in the energy and really working at that moment. Because I believe every child wants to have a relationship with their teacher.
Even if they don't know they do.
Even if they don't know they do. And that's powerful. Even if they don't know they do, they really want it. And for you to continue to work to find that opening. And then once you have, then we have something in common that we can really have that shared experience. And you may be the only teacher who ever took the time to find that out about me. It means something to me.
Absolutely.
Oh, if only I could go back to high school and be in your English classroom.
Thank you.
Miss Rose, thank you.
Thanks. This has been fun. Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed our time together with teachers Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Molli Rose. She certainly gave us a lot to think about, particularly her challenge to always find the awesome in the awful and the need for ed leaders to be present in classrooms. You can follow Mrs. Rose on Twitter at RoseMolli, RoseMolli. Thank you for spending time with me today, and thank you for all that you do for every student, every teacher, and every staff member. You are making a difference. If no one else has told you, I want you to know that I believe in you. Good day.
Thank you for listening to the EdLeader podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and consider leaving a review with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so that we may continue to grow the EdLeader community. We hope that you have enjoyed your time with Dr. Jackson. Until next time.